Welcome to this presentation about research data management across borders and looking at some of the challenges and possible solutions. This is what I'm going to talk about for the next 10 minutes or so. First, I'm going to introduce a framework for discussion of research data management. Then I will have a closer look at the Danish case. We'll then look at WACnet, the transnational challenges in our project. And on the last slide, some possible solutions. As to the framework, this is something that I've been using in different contexts, but what I'm going to present is a framework that you can use when you want to discuss research data management, what's actually at stake, and what is sort of the overall systematic view that it could be placed in. So this introduces some of the main phases that each or any research project goes through with, in this case, the archive web. So we start with the archive web, our object of study. Then we probably go through a phase of data cleaning and then starts the analysis. After that comes then some sort of dissemination, publishing journal articles, book chapters, or what have we. And then there may be a phase for long-term storage. Of course, these phases are not, as I put them here, a linear kind of one coming after the other. It's going back and forth. It's an iterative process, but for the principle, it works okay here. And then we have some what I call transversal themes, and that's some themes that runs across these phases. First one, most importantly in this case, is research data management, because we have different things at stake when we talk about research data management in the phase where we look at the archive web, in the web archive, in the data cleaning phase, in the analysis phase, dissemination, and long-term storage. So we have research data management to manage in all phases. Legal issues also come in different forms depending on which of the phases we're looking at. And the last one is research ethics. They also depend on when do we actually discuss this. So I am going to look now at the Danish case, and I'm focusing on especially, of course, research data management. Of course, legal issues become part of it. I skip the research ethical stuff because it's not that important in this case. So if we look at what can we do as Danish researchers who want to study the archive web as it is archived in the Danish web archive Netarkivet. So what can we actually do in terms of research data management? How do we manage our data? And the first thing, as I mentioned, we have the Danish web archive called Netarkivet. And I'm sure you have been introduced to this Tuesday, so I'm not going to say much more about that in general, but I'm focused on the research data management part of it. Because one of the main access point to Netarkivet is the Wayback. The Wayback view, as you know, many of you, and this is sort of the usual access point to the data. But there is a new access feature on the way. It may already have been rolled out while I'm speaking, or it may be just in a couple of months, weeks. But it's called the Solar Wayback. And it's a brilliant interface where you can search, you can do link analysis on the fly, and you can do a lot of great stuff. What is very good in this case about research data management is that you can actually export what you have found as a WARC file, and then you can continue working with that WARC file using the Archives Unleashed tools or whatever you want to use. One last thing, and that's where I think the Danish Web Archive stands out, is that it is now possible, and has been for a little more than a year, to have material extracted from Netarkivet. So as a researcher, you can send in an application, say, I would like to have these 1,000 websites extracted, and I would like to have the text and the hyperlinks and whatever you want to have extracted. And then you'll get that extracted. And I think that's probably just a dream for many of my fellow researchers, but that's what we can have done here in Denmark, which is simply great. So if you then look at the next phase, the data cleaning and analysis phase. Because once you have, and I'm going to focus here on if you have exported your found data set as a WARC file, or if you have it extracted, because if it's way back, then it sort of stays within the Net Archives premises. But if you have it exported as a WARC file or extracted as whatever you want to have it as extracted as, then you have to store that somewhere. And we store it, and that's kind of part of the agreement with the NetArchive. We store it at a server, at a secure server at our research institution or at Aarhus University. So we have the data sitting on a server at the university. And then we can start doing all the data cleaning and all the analysis and all whatever we would like to do with the data, which is a super great solution. As to dissemination, we still haven't kind of found out who can get access to the results once we start publishing. So that's still up for grabs. And who should preserve the results in the long run? That's also being discussed. The main challenge that is being discussed right now is about collaborators outside of the institution. I mean, we have already taken some huge leaps forward in having things extracted. But what about collaborators not working at Aarhus University? Can they get access to the server at our institution? Or could we even hand over the data from our server to the collaborator's server? So that's what is being discussed right now. So then continuing to the WARCnet, the transnational challenges, because how can we do the studies we would like to do in WARCnet with the research data management as it looks right now? So to what extent can we share data across borders in the project? That's what we're going to discuss up front. It's going to be a discussion from the very beginning. So I just wanted to highlight it here as the discussion in a way. And one of the big challenges is, of course, that web archives are different. They come with different legal frameworks, different access conditions, and different technical possibilities of interacting with your data. So that's one of the big challenges, especially, of course, the legal differences. So what I think we're going to do in this project is that we will challenge the legal frameworks, including definitions such as what is the material that we are discussing in a legal sense. When does a material that is in the web archive become a result that is researcher generated and then can be taken out of the web archive, and who can it be shared with, and what can be shared? So I think we haven't really started discussing this at an international level. What can we actually get out of the web archives and still staying within the legal frameworks? And the challenges, if we look at them, if we kind of look through this framework, we have the different web archives, as I just mentioned. Most of them have the way back view, something similar to that. So that's what they offer in a way. Most national web archives do not have any possibility of extraction and no possibility of exporting what has been found. It has to, in a way, stay within the premises of the web archive. So what we're going to grapple with in the WARCnet project is, should we do our analysis locally then within the different archives? Could people from other countries get access to the national web archives? Could I, as a Dane, get access to the BNF in Paris or whatever? So that's what we're going to discuss. Could we move the results around, as I just mentioned before? Dissemination and long-term preservation is still the same issues, access and who should preserve the results. Some possible solutions to end with. Some of the path that I would like to investigate, at least. Hopefully some of you would like to join me. For the events, only one of our objects of study, we could in a way bypass the web archives, because we could use collections that are open, freely open. We could use the IIPC special collections, things in the Internet Archive, the Portuguese web archive. We could simply just look closely at the already open web archives. Another thing that I would really like to investigate is that if we could have the Danish extraction agreement, that is the agreement between the web archive and the researchers about extraction of material, if we could have that translated to English and then use this as a stepping stone to open a debate with the legal staff at the different web archives. So more or less like saying, here is what they have been doing in Denmark within the legal framework that they have, which is a very closed web archive indeed. But this is what they can do. How come that you cannot do this in France, in Luxembourg, etc., etc.? So that could be a way of opening up a debate with the legal staff at the web archives. Last thing is that we could also think in kind of look in the direction of the European Open Science Cloud. And just recently, and that's very recently, it's within this week actually, that something called the EOSC Nordic has been opened, which is the Nordic region part of the European Open Science Cloud. And what they would like to do is that they would actually like to get in contact with actually ongoing transnational research projects about what could they offer. Could be very simple things like a single sign-on, so that you could sit elsewhere in Europe and sign on to the data sitting somewhere within the system. So that's one of the things that I would really like to investigate a little bit more. So that was all from me, and thank you for listening.